I bought my first Alocasia probably about 3 months ago, and it was this one here, and I'm not sure what this one's called. I think it might be an Alocasia poly. I can never remember, but I'd been scared for a while about trying an Alocasia, and then I saw this one and it was really cheap, and I thought, well, since it doesn't cost much, maybe just get this one as a starter and see how it goes. So I did, and yeah, 3 months later and it's still surviving. I know in the life of a plant that isn't necessarily all that much and that it could easily go downhill any day, but I've really enjoyed having this plant and it gave me just a little bit more confidence. I did look up many care guides on YouTube, on Google. I basically looked up loads and loads of resources, and so yeah, so far so good. Then sometime last week my husband actually brought this Alocasia home for me, and this is an Alocasia zebrina, I believe, and he actually bought this for me because I was feeling a bit down, and he bought this for me to cheer me up, which was really sweet. And yeah, just this one has just tipped me kind of over the edge, and I now feel like I've started an addiction to Alocasia, and I have been very on the ball with them. I've kind of been obsessing over them, constantly checking them with the moisture meter and making sure they're getting the right light. I'm being careful to clean off the leaves on a regular basis, because the whole thing that was putting me off to start with is all of the horror stories that you hear about spider mites and dropping leaves and going dormant in winter, and I'd kind of let all that stuff put me off for a while, but I decided to just bite the bullet and go for it, and just getting this second one has really sealed the deal for me. I am now officially addicted to Alocasias. So this one also has a new leaf on the way there, and I can't really take credit for that because it was already on the way when I got it, but I'm happy to see it, and yeah, I'm excited to see where this new Alocasia addiction takes me. I've also managed to collect some corms from this one because some corms came to the surface, so I took them out, and so I'm going to have a go at growing those come spring, but obviously I'll be waiting until springtime because we're still in winter at the moment. But I'm quite excited about that. The thought of making more Alocasias, the mini ones, is really exciting, and I will probably have a look in the Alocasia zebrina too this year at some point and see if there are any corms in there, but I don't want to disturb it too much at the moment because it's only just got here, and I like to let them acclimatise to their environment and just not stress them out too much. And so this year I've been thinking about what my houseplanty goals are for this year, and one of the things that I really need to do this year is get my Monstera on a pole. And I definitely should have done it by now because I've had this plant about 12 months, but I just haven't for some reason or another, and this is the year it's going to happen because it's now got so heavy that I've had to kind of lean it against here. It has to lean against something or it can't stay up. So I am going to need to put a pole on this one this year as well. So that is right at the top of my to-do list. I will get that sorted early spring. And I have several houseplants that I would love to upsize this year and really see them flourish. And this bird of paradise is one of them. And this actually was a teeny tiny baby when I got it, and so it has already grown fairly significantly, but this is the first proper sort of full season that I will have had it because it's still fairly new. And so for that reason I'm kind of excited that maybe this year, with it being all settled in, it might grow for me quite significantly, because it was actually growing very quickly in summer, and then of course winter came along and it stopped. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this one does this year. Another thing I really want to do is I want to get a small pole for this epipremnum and get this one on a pole, because at the moment I've just got it kind of there on my shelf and it's just about attached. So it would be nice to give it something more permanent and the opportunity to size up those leaves. I also have a mother plant that this epipremnum came from, and this one is quite large, so this year I'd really like to take some more propagations and maybe start off a couple more poles as well. They are a really fun plant to propagate, so I'll definitely be doing some more of those this year. There are several more plants that I'd like to propagate this year, including this Syngonian white butterfly. This one is getting a bit top heavy because it's got the heavy vines coming out, so I'm going to take a few cuttings from this one and make some new plants. I do give most of my propagations away to friends and family, but I will probably keep one or two for myself as well. The other plants that I would like to propagate, I did mention that I would like to grow some Alocasia from corms, and I'm going to try that out. That's actually something I've never done before. And I'm quite excited about doing some propagating this year, because this is my second year now of doing propagations, and I kind of feel a little bit more confident this year. Last year I was just kind of fumbling about, working out what worked and what didn't, and by no means am I an expert, but I do have a little bit more knowledge than I had last year, so now I have more of an idea of what's possible. And I have to say, I do generally prefer soil propagation most of the time. It's just easier for me. It means I don't have to transition the plants from water to soil. However, it does come with its cons in that it tends to attract fungus gnats, because you do tend to have to keep cuttings moist. So I'm thinking this year I may do some water cuttings. And the other reason for wanting to do water cuttings is that I like to do some on camera and record the progress for you, so I can tape it and show you the progress as we go along. Another plant goal this year is to propagate this Tradescantia nanook, and as you can see, it's getting quite leggy, and it's a really easy plant to propagate, this one. I did lots of cuttings last year, gave them all away, so this year I'm going to do some more and tidy this one up a bit. For some reason I am getting a few crispy bits on this one. I'm not sure why. I didn't really get that many during summer, but hey ho, I think it's just one of those things that happens with this plant. It just tends to get crispy bits sometimes. Never mind, it's one of those things, isn't it? Another plant I'd like to propagate this year is this Philodendron scandens Brazil, and this relies upon it actually growing some more before I consider that, because it's still a fairly new plant and I do like to let them grow a bit before I start propagating. So if this grows pretty quick, which I think it does because it's still growing now in winter, so I'm pretty sure it's a fast grower in spring, summer, so I'll definitely be doing some cuttings of that one. It's one of those plants that I could just see myself loving forever and wanting loads around. A bit like the epipremnum, I just can't get enough of those either. I love them. Another thing I'd really like this year is to watch my Monstera adansonii size up, because this was just a tiny baby when I got it at the end of summer, yeah. So it didn't really have much time to grow, and I am just really looking forward to seeing this one grow. I would love to propagate it. Obviously it's not really big enough yet, but at some point I would just love to propagate this one. The Monstera adansonii is one of my favourite plants, and I've wanted one for a while, and now I've got one, I love it even more. But yeah, I know these can be quite fast growers too, so I'm very much looking forward to watching this one turn into a grown-up little plant. Now I would really love to propagate some rubber plants this year, however mine are still fairly new and I'm not sure if they are ready for that yet. They're still quite small for rubber plants, and even though I know it will grow back because obviously I've done this with other plants, I'm still a little bit precious. Until a plant gets a little bit bigger, I'm a little bit precious about pruning it, which, you know, sometimes pruning can make the plant get bigger because it promotes growth, but it depends on the plant, and I tend to like to wait maybe a year or two before I propagate from a plant if it's quite small. So we'll see. I might do some rubber plant chopping, we'll see. Also, this rubber plant, it actually branched on its own. It branched spontaneously, so I didn't actually do anything to make it branch, and so there's part of me that's thinking, should I snip the tip off that and make another one? And there's part of me thinking, well, it would be interesting to see what this plant does, you know, naturally without me interfering. So I'm not sure what I'll do about that yet. I'd love to also propagate my Taneki as well, but again, I've only just got this one and I think I'd like to see it grow a bit more first. It's very tempting for me whenever I get a new plant. I don't know about you, but I'm keen to propagate and go crazy making loads of new plants, but sometimes it's good to just sit back, enjoy the plants you do have, because sometimes I see people who have hundreds and hundreds of plants and I think to myself, well, good for you, but I don't think I could cope with that many plants. So I like to keep my collection fairly compact, because I know that if I had hundreds and hundreds, I wouldn't be able to cope with it. It would stress me out, and probably some of the plants would suffer because they would naturally become neglected because I've got too much to do. So I do really admire anyone who has got a massive collection and keeping on top of it, but I don't think I could manage with sort of 300 plants or whatever. That's why I tend to often pot duplicate plants in together. So say if I take a propagation, I may pop one in back in with the mother plant instead of making a new plant. Not always, but if I find things are getting too much for me and I've got too many plants to care for, it's another way of just condensing plants down but without actually getting rid of them.